discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
This video is starting to get to some of the fundamentals of algebra. This stuff is really important. There's a lot of vocabulary and you need to be good at it. So this video is going to address relations and then functions in the next video. But before we get to that, I would love if you did this warm-up just to get your juices flowing about what this stuff could mean. So pause the video now and do these 9 problems and come back when you're done. Pause the video. And check over these answers before you move on in the video. Alright, on with the vocabulary. Our first vocabulary word is the word relation. Now don't overthink it. A relation is simply a set of ordered pairs. Sometimes people like to define it as a pairing of input values and output values. Take a minute to write that down. Then we get more specific, and we talk about domain. The domain of any relation is simply the input values, or the first set of coordinates in the ordered pair. So once again, the domain is also referred to as the input values. I'm going to go right to science class 2, because you've perhaps talked about independent variables. Independent variables in science class are the ones that don't depend on anything else. So domain is also sometimes referred to as your independent variables. Now when you think of independent variables, you might be thinking of graphing as well. Or if you're going back to input values, sometimes we're so used to x and y in a table, they're also referred to as your x values. So whatever x is your domain. All 4 of these phrases can be used to mean the same thing. So let's look at range. Well, it's the opposite of the domain. These are the output values. Those are called the dependent variables in science class. And the letter you are used to associating those with is y. So x values are your domain and y values are your range. And it's really important that you memorize those. So here in this chart you can see that your input and output values are written as coordinate pairs. So your input values or your domain are the blue ones, the first number in the coordinate pair, and your output values are the red ones. They can be written as coordinate pairs or they can be put into a table. This is simply a relation, a pairing of input values to output values. Here's an example where they ask us to list the domain of the coordinate pairs and then list the range. So when you're asked to list the domain, you simply make a list, and you can use brackets to indicate that you have a set of something, and you just pick out all the x values. Now if you see they're repeated like the 4 and the 5, you only need to write them once. If you write them twice, it's okay too. But 4, 5, and then 6 is my set of input values, and we call that the domain. The range are just the y values or the output values. The 3, the 7, the 6, the 19, and then there's another 7. So you can use that set notation, but you need to have commas in between. So 3 would come first, then 6 and 7 and 19. If you don't write them in order, it's okay, but your answer keys usually will. In this example, we need to find the domain and the range given an equation. So my equation is y equals 3x plus 4. The domain is written in the table. And here they've specified what x values they're going to use. If they don't have x values specified, just put in any value. This equation will tell you what the output is. So I'm going to use my first x value of 1, and you would substitute that into the equation as you've done many times before, and you get an output value of 7 there. And you can continue and go through and out will come your table of output values. And maybe you can see a pattern and then get it done. So now we're asked to list the domain. Again, the domain is the set of input values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the equation told us our output values 7, 10, 13, 16, and 19. So sometimes you're going to have to calculate to find your range. Let's have you just skip down and you find the domain and range of this example here. Pause the video. And here's your domain and range that you should have seen.